Hi, everybody. We're going to start with the presentation of the evaluation of EMF exposure in the Tesla Model Y and how we did it. Uh, this is a project that started 5 years ago. Today, I want to give you an overview of how we did this special project, why we did it, and we are truly happy to give you these results because it's going to help so many lives, so many people that are suffering from electro hypersensitivity that are not capable to enter to an EV vehicle. And this is very important because nowadays we are finding that the EVs and all the new hybrid cars and all the vehicles are so smart, are full of sensors, are producing huge amount of EMF. So the question is how safe we are when we are exposed to an EMF in a condition that we can avoid, and it's a near field exposure. Normally, people are surrounded by EMF, and you can just be far from the source. And if you are far from the source, you will reduce the exposure you are immersed because it's not a near field exposure. But when we are talking about EVs and actually any type of vehicles, we have a different type of exposure because what we have is a near field exposure that we can't avoid unless you are not in the car. uh, you're going to be exposed to this near field exposure. So this is one of the reasons that in Nostak Center that we are the ones that developed the formulation of the Spiro technologies to filter out the EMF pollution. We were so worried about this. And as a EMF researcher, I started the dialogue to start to understand this. I start to share my findings in 2020, and actually one of these articles I wrote, I share with different institutes and universities, finding that nobody in the world they're having a solution for this, and everybody was looking for a new standard for vehicles. So this uh, project start with the sole purpose to find an understanding of the type of exposure we are with these vehicles, and also to understand what type of Spiro filtering solution we need to really be capable to um, neutralize the artificial quantum noise that is produced by this technology. So in January 8, 2021, I started to look for what are the current standards. And the conclusion was there is no standards. We need a new standard for these hybrid and electrical vehicles. And for that reason, we start in the FEA Institute, is the nonprofit organization that we launched in 2021, and we were acknowledged as a nonprofit in 2023. And we are focused in IFIA, the Institute for Electromagnetic Hygiene, Evaluation, and Certification is a nonprofit dedicated to research, uh, certify, and developing solutions for electromagnetic pollution. And we work in three main areas: and applying scientific research, certification programs for spaces and technologies, and public health projects. And for us, this is a public health issue because the vehicles are everywhere and we need to use vehicles, and the vehicles are becoming more smart. And you will see at the end of this presentation that the type of exposure that we find in this project was not only a type of emission that is produced by the EV vehicles, it's also produced by any standard vehicle nowadays. If we are talking about the new generation of vehicles that are smart, are connected to your phone, are connected to everything. So our hypothesis was something that when we have the scientific data, we see that it was a different type of emission. We are expecting a huge emission in the electrical vehicles from electrical fields because we were thinking that electrical vehicles generate electromagnetic fields from batteries, inverters, and of course we know that we have communication systems in the vehicle, but our hypothesis is that even when these fields meet current thermal safety limits, they are polarized and produce a type of biological effect that is non-thermal effect. One of these non-thermal effects is the oxidative stress. Some of you are not quite familiar with the type of risk that are related to EMF. Some maybe you are hearing about EMF, or you don't know, okay, what type of harmful effects we're receiving from the EMF. And to give you an overview of this, let me summarize and this type of harmful effects. So we have that we know as a fact and scientific fact that the HRV, heart rate variability, is affected, the nervous system is affected by EMF. So when you're exposed to any type of electrical or magnetic fields or radio frequency radiation, you will be affected in your HRV. And HRV is an important marker for longevity, important marker that shows how your nervous system is responding to the environment. And it's also related, in the end of the day, how good is your resting heart rate and how imbalanced is the whole system. Other marker is the VO2 max, and the reduction of the amount of oxygen you have available to do any task is other marker that it's affecting our biological system. Also is the brain activity. The EMF, and especially when we are exposed to near field EMF, in the past, the people take the phone and put it close to the head, and the electrical stimulation produce a change in the brain activity and the brain waves. And this is proven beyond any doubts. And there is specific studies around this and potential risk even of tumors and different neurological disorders. Other type of harmful effects is the key that produce all the chaos in our cells is this and produce all the alterations in the cells communication is the alteration that produce in the voltage gated calcium channels, ion channels. And that opens the door to an excess of calcium inside your cells, changing a lot of how the energy of the cell is being produced and affecting in producing a huge amount of chaos in your body, in cellular communication, in cellular polarity, and oxidative stress response. The stress itself is a marker related to EMF because it's not only physiological stress, it's psychological stress related to alteration in the hormones system. And this stress, it's one of the things that you will find that is being produced by a specific type of free radicals produce oxidative stress. The oxidative stress is related to more than 100 health conditions. So stress is one of these most common factors when the people are exposed to EMF. Even if you are not sensitive, you will have a response of this type of free radicals producing stress in your body. When you combine all these types of affections in your body, you have a chaos of a health condition that you can relate to any condition you have previously, and that is electro hypersensitivity. A person that is suffering from different symptoms and confusion, disorientation, memory problems, anxiety, fatigue, light sensitivity, blurred vision, skin problems, irritability, sleeping disorders, tinnitus, and all these symptoms when appears in a person without any explanation, without any relation to specific other type of conditions, is normally symptoms of EHS or EMRS, electromagnetic radiation syndrome or electrohypersensitivity. It's the way it's called. And no, it's not a disease, it's a response to an environment that is not coherent, it's not naturally behaving the natural dynamics of the electromagnetics in the space. And the reason of that is the polarization of electromagnetic waves. It's proven in scientific papers already. It's understand that polarization is the key difference between man-made and natural electromagnetic fields. So human beings produce a type of electromagnetic fields are being polarized to spread information. Telecommunication signals are actually polarizations of electromagnetic waves. Polarized EMF are producing artificial quantum noise in the surroundings when they are being transmitted in any space. What happened, and this is one of the most important key factors to understand, is when we are immersed in this chaos of different signals, we have a huge amount of artificial quantum noise. Because the polarization of EMF, this is something that I already studied for the last 15 years in Aruba Island and conducting a environmental assessment in the whole island of Aruba, the Dutch Caribbean. And what happened is something that the telecommunication systems, they can see it as a noise level, and the increase of the noise in relation to the signal to noise ratio. It's one of the parameters that you can relate to the production of these disturbances in the space. But the disturbances are happening in the fundamental level, in the spin of the electrons of the molecules and the air molecules, the water molecules, the soil molecules, and your own molecules in any biological system. The interaction with this energy polarized is changing the magnetic momentum in the electrons on all these systems. And that's the reason that even when we have non-thermal effects, we have a huge response in our body producing more oxidative stress. And the reason is this: the polarization of electromagnetic waves are changing the quantum spin polarization in our molecules, and also in the air molecules, and also in the water molecules, affecting the structure of water, and also in soils, affecting the quality of soils, affecting any biological system. So that's the key to understand the problem. And the problem is in the electron spin. And we need to see the electron spin as a as dynamic system, and you can go and study the spin model from Markoulakis and how the electron geometric magnetic flux dynamic model works with a specific polarity. And this is one of the most accurate mathematical representations of how the spin looks if we need to represent it in a graphical way. And it's important because we are talking about a polarity that when it's moved, it will change the information that it's sharing with peers. And it's affecting the information that is coherent and produce information that is not coherent. And this is also happening nowadays in the coherence time, even in quantum computing. So the same principle that in quantum computing is being observed, it's happening inside our body with this polarized EMF. And the reason is because the spin biochemistry modulates reactive oxygen species. And in this paper, you will find that the physical mechanism that is behind this process is basically a magnetic mechanism. Because one of the things that happen with the magnetic fields is you can't block the magnetic fields. So you can block an electrical field, but the magnetic fields can go through these materials normally. It's very difficult to block magnetic fields. And that's the reason when we are dealing with any electronic devices, we can't actually not block the magnetic fields, but you can block the electrical fields. And the electromagnetic compliance test show you the reduction of the electrical fields are being isolated. So when you go to a vehicle, you are immersed in a near field of radio frequency radiation, of signals of telecommunication that are being shared, and the electrical field of the vehicle is basically isolated in a good way. But the magnetic field can go through the material and go inside the vehicle and change in a dynamic that can be very harmful for your health. And this is something that we found in our project. The most important thing to understand is that the artificial quantum noise is the actual electrical pollution you're receiving from any source producing electromagnetic waves to spread telecommunications, or from the wiring system in any home office, because the electrical current, what we call AC, alternated current, is changing the polarity so many times per second, 60 hertz, 50 hertz, but also is producing more disturbances because it's being spread also some harmonics that is different frequencies above the main frequency, and all these frequencies that are circulated in the wiring system is producing more of these disturbances. And the disturbances are producing a huge amount of noise around the space. And that's the noise that is changing the quantum electron spin of the system. This is very important to understand before go to our findings in the study of the EV vehicles. It's very important because we were focusing on understand the sources of pollution, but it's also important to understand it's not about the intensity of the radiation. It's about the amount of polarization in the amount of artificial quantum noise. Because even when we are talking about low intensity, ultra weak radiation, because it's polarized, the amount of noise is huge and is affecting our cell's biology. And this is based in scientific data, experimental evidence. It's not a hypothesis, it's something that is well documented, and you can find all these documents in our EMF Learning Center. You can see our documents and articles in the IFIA Institute. And after I finish this presentation today, I will leave you here in the description all the links you can expand and elaborate more about this important subject. If you understand the problem properly, you can understand why the solution needs to be filtering out the noise and not trying to block something that you can block. So in the end, it's a EMF pollution or electro pollution is producing an increase of free radicals that are affecting our antioxidant defense system. And any source of Wi-Fi is producing this noise. And in the Nostock Center and the IFIA Institute, we study this with a specific telecommunication software that using AI, we can see how is behaving the signal, how is bouncing the radiation, and how these fields are bouncing, are producing this noise. We can measure the noise. If we can measure the noise in the most fundamental level and the noise that is being expressed in the telecommunication systems. And there is always a noise level, and we have a amount of noise level that is always present in any space. This is a noise that goes above this noise and increase the amount of noise that we have in any space, but the noise is changing the polarization in an artificial way of these water molecules, of these air molecules, of these soil molecules, and of any molecules in any biological system. In the other hand, we have Spiro technology. Spiro technology is well validated with clinical trials, double blind, and it's only something I need to say before go deep. This is a technology proven with HRV clinical trials in electro-hypersensitive persons. We have clinical trials in sport performance, but also the technique that we use for this study, it was the bioelectrography study. In the bioelectrography study or scan is a system that comes from the biowell, from the GDB camera, and is a system that has been tested before. Actually, I was one of the ones in 2021 for the university in Spain that I proved in a thesis how the Spiro technologies can be measured in the changes of the Spiro fields, the filtering effect from neutralizing artificial quantum noise from telecommunication signals can be observed using a bioelectrography system. And the bioelectrography scan with the biowell is an effective method to do this type of field test. And that's the reason that we choose this technique to confirm if we were applying the correct amount of filtering power required to this type of conditions. And Spiro technology has been proven, and we have on ResearchGate, we posted this information that we run a longitudinal study involving 357 patients for 4 years and proven the effective of the Spiro technology in 144 patients who implemented the Spiro as a part of their interventions, and said 71% reported disappearance of their painful symptoms within 36 hours. So the Spiro technology has been validated as a system effectively to protect and help people with electrohypersensitivity. It's a worldwide patent. It's a nanotech formulation based in material science in the unique properties of gold nanoparticles that exhibits a specific quantum phenomenon produced by the ferromagnetic behavior of gold nanoparticles. And I'm an expert in material science in these properties. I was one of the first that found this property in gold nanoparticles, and the formulation is made around this specific property and is stabilized with palladium and titanium. It's a public invention patent, and the formulation of these circus films that we use, it's characterized in the whole spectrum of non-ionizing radiation, extreme low frequency radiation, and high frequency radiation. So we know as a fact what is the amount of filtering power we need to handle the artificial quantum noise produced by specific frequencies. So as soon as we do an assessment and you understand the amount of frequencies that are producing this artificial quantum noise and the wireless transmit power of these systems, we know how much of these filters we need, how many, and we'll apply it and we filter the artificial quantum noise. So we validated all these technologies and techniques previously, and when we did this project, what we are looking for was do a full assessment of the vehicle. We choose two types of vehicles of the same model, the Tesla Y 2021 and the Tesla Y 2022. And the reason was because the manufacturer changed the type of sensors they were using in the previous model. So after 2022, they did some changes, and we decided to test both. And the reason that we started this was because we have electrohypersensitive people asking us about this. And in order to be sure, we need to understand where are the specific main sources of pollution. And we have a full assessment in the vehicle. We measure also biophysical markers in electrohypersensitive persons that we ask the collaboration to go inside the vehicle without any protection. And we measure the stress response in them. We measure the body voltage from radio frequency radiation and from low frequency radiation that goes through the body of the person during any trip in the vehicle. And we measure all the different bands. We take some pictures to document the process, but actually it was a huge amount of instruments that was used. And the vehicle was used in movement, in highways and parking lots and different urban areas to see the difference, and the difference between the exposure that are coming from the vehicle and the exposure are coming from outside, from cell phone towers, from high voltage lines in any space. And because we started the process in a parking lot far from any near field exposure, we can get the full characterization of the vehicle and in when the vehicle is not being used and when the vehicle is being used, and observing also during the charging stations and how the charging station, the amount of pollution change. And the reason that change is the quality of the charging station. So we go to the supercharging station of Tesla, and we found it was much better than the standard regular charging stations from different brands. So actually, Tesla being using a system that is charging the vehicle faster, the quality of the system is much better in terms of EMC, electromagnetic compatibility. At the same time, we did it so during the charging stations, and we compare and we obtain also the difference between exposure in different areas of the vehicles. So we have the values from the back seat and also the front seat and the co-pilot seat, and the difference between it was huge. So very, very interesting results, because we were not expecting that the amount of contamination that you can get can change so much in a short space. So starting to share one of the findings that we have, it was that when we start to measure the vehicle and the amount of pollution, we were expecting huge amount of electrical fields, huge amounts when we are in a highway. And one of the things that was very interesting, it was not the case. The amount of huge electrical fields never was founded. But in radio frequency, microwave radiation was huge. The system of the vehicle is always streaming to the manufacturer, and because of this streaming, is producing huge amount of artificial polarized EMF. And this artificial polarized EMF are producing so much chaos that remains in the space interacting, and the signals are bouncing inside the whole vehicle. So the result shows that we have more exposure from microwave radiation than from the electrical fields. And we have from low frequency more magnetic flux than any other type of contamination. If you go and see the paper we posted, you can see how the passenger seat it's being exposed sometimes to higher peaks of radiation. In other cases, is the driver's seat. But when we are talking about radio frequency, the driver's seat remains being the one that is more exposed to radio frequency radiations and huge peaks of contamination. In terms of electrical field, we have a huge amount of peaks of electrical fields in the passenger seat. Compared with the back seat and the driver's seat, it was more stable in normally the same types of peaks. And when you study the variability range of each of the seats, you find that the variability is huge in the passenger seat, because you have huge peaks. Even when in average you will have a window below even the driver's seat or the back seat, the peaks that appear suddenly are much more higher than the other seats. But when we go to the magnetic flux, it's different. The magnetic flux change, um, but are dynamic, are not stable, and change during the use of the vehicle. And one of the things that we found was that the power density, it was sometimes can be linked to the same amount of near field exposure you're receiving from a Wi-Fi router. A hotspot, a Wi-Fi router, it's one of the worst polluted devices in your home. And the type of exposure you're receiving in the vehicle is such equivalent to this. So when we start to comparing locations, we start to find some difference, tiny difference in the peak emission of radio frequency, and then we're more related to the condition of the location the car was placed. It was streaming in that specific area. So you can see all these graphics and explanations in the paper. You can go deep there, but I want to explain a little bit how we choose the solution. Remember that previously I showed you a chart of the characterization of the material that shows that we're capable to understand the amount of Spiro films, the circles that you see in the pictures that are related to our patent, and the amount of circles. When you have 3, you have an Spiro power 1. And when we did the test on the vehicle, we found huge amount of different sources of pollution, and we found that we require an Spiro power 19, the filtering power required to neutralize the artificial quantum noise from this EMF. So in order to understand this, we need to run 950 measurements, and we need to do a heat map and understand the different behavior of the signals, to understand the locations where the filters needs to be placed to have 100% response. And for that reason, we identified 3 specific areas where the filters need to be placed in order to have the better response. And that's the reason that we need to split the filtering power in 3 specific products. Each product is the square EV, it's square product, a car square, that inside is made with 21 Spiro films for a filtering power of 7. So because we know from the characterization of the test that we need only Spiro power 19, we choose this product to produce a Spiro power 21 split to be placed in the specific locations. In the vehicle, you have it in the driver's seat, and you have it in the co-pilot seat, and you have it in the middle, in front. When you receive our filtering solution, you will receive also a kit and a manual of the specific location you need to place. And what something that we found is it takes around 1 hour to detox completely the vehicle as soon as you put the filters in the vehicle. And because you need an hour, and people are that are electro hypersensitive, they will deal with the chaos of the vehicle in the first hour. So for that reason, it's very important to put the filtering solution fixed permanent in the same place and leave it there. When you enter to the vehicle, the Spiro response filtering start to happen, and if people are going to visit a friend or going to take an Uber and it's an EV, the clever way is has your Spiro filters with you in your body to take advantage that the response, the filtering response, start to happen around the material, and the material is close to your body, so it starts in your body and around your body, and it's built as a residual effect in the whole vehicle. If this is your vehicle, just put it there, leave it there, and that's fine. Much better. The statistical results shows the coherence that we build with the Spiro filtering solution is huge, and we take out all the high entropy and abnormal dynamics. You can see it in the cloud statistics of the BioWell bioelectrography system. You can see how the standard deviation remains really, really stable, and all the markers shows what we have in previous studies and previous scientific publications, that this is one of the markers to see the level of coherence produced by the Spiro filtering technology. The black dots are the after Spiro are being installed, and the gray dots are before. So you can see that is not coherent. The before is spread in the space. The standard deviation is high, so the entropy is high. And the statistics shows this. It's remaining stable, the signal. You were able to prove it. Also, we proved the amount of body voltage that goes through your body change, and the biophysical markers shows in electrohypersensitive persons that the stress response it's being neutralized. The person start to recover gradually, and using a specific marker from the BioWell systems called the activity level of environment, we have a very important result that can be shown. It's that we are reducing the abnormal activity related to chaos and changes of huge stress level in the space. The red bars are showing these chaotic states inside the vehicle, and this was in movement, the vehicle. So we did it again, installing Spiro, and the changes are huge because we take out all the abnormal activity in the space, all the stress levels of the space go out and remains in a normal activity and a high activity, stable, a signal that is stable and dynamic because it's a system that is using so much power, is producing a movement of electromagnetic fields, but are being filtering out and are being stabilized. And that's the key difference with the system. So the result shows that Spiro Power 19 is a passive nanomagnetism technology that reduced 61.95% the entropy in the space of the vehicle, reduction of the body voltage, and a more stable and biocompatible internal environment, reducing the stress response in electro-hypersensitive persons, and also producing a more stable, reducing the noise level in telecommunication systems, reducing the signal to noise ratio in this wireless system. So the filter of Spiro are not affecting the telecommunications of the vehicles. Actually, are enhancing the telecommunications, taking out all the noise are being produced that are affecting our cells polarity. This paper is the first paper of a larger project that we're going to manage for the next years, that we're going to go deep in every aspect. Now we're focused in biophysical markers. Before, there was a technical environmental assessment, and also to the characterization of the amount of pollution. Now we are focusing biomarkers, and we are focusing different other aspects to combine and to see what could be the new standard for safety vehicles. And the conclusion also show us that we need to do more. And this is the reason that it's in IFIA Institute, we have the BMCP. It's the Biocompatible Electromagnetic Compliance Program, establish a new benchmark in electromagnetic hygiene. And we are aiming to produce a certification for safety vehicles. As a non-profit organization, we truly believe this is very important nowadays and for the future to come. And also, this is important because it's the only way that we can ensure that EHS people can use this type of technologies without being affected. Of course, we understand that everybody's being affected, not only EHS people or EMF sensitive people, but the EMF sensitive people, they can handle it in any way. So that's a reason that we are doing a global census, because there is so much people suffering from this condition. They are not aware of that. They are being misdiagnosed, and they are being treated as with different other conditions that they don't have. So it's very important for us in the nonprofit. If you want to help us, you want to collaborate with us, you want to join to any scientific research, just go to our website, scan the QR code if you can with your phone, and I mean, we are open to collaborate with any of you. My pleasure to meet you today. My team and I, we will be remaining here for a couple of minutes, and also in the comments, we will be answering any questions that you can have. Remember, in the description, I will leave all the links to the papers, to the scientific papers, and to the main scientific paper you can find in the Journal of Biotechnology and Bioengineering in Medcrave under that title, and also in academia and also in ResearchGate, you will find. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Stay well. Bye-bye.